Welcome to Polaris Live, conversations on the US-China relationship and its global impact as seen through the eyes of experts from around the world. This user-supported channel is brought to you live in conjunction with the Foreign Policy Association of New York. Viewers may ask questions using the bar on the right-hand side of the screen, and we'll try to get as many of them as possible. The recent United States presidential elections are being labeled the most important signal of the future direction of U.S. domestic and foreign policy in generations. Throughout this autumn, a select group of international experts have been invited to offer their views on the election's results and how countries around the world, especially China, are preparing for their outcome. This is your host, Sarwar Kashmiri, and my guest today is Mr. Amir Farid Abu Hasan. Mr. Hasan is the Consul General of Malaysia in New York and recently elected President of the Society of Consuls in New York. Welcome to Polaris Live, Mr. Consul General. Salam alaikum.
Walaikum salam, Professor Sarwar.
Listen, this is only the second Polaris Live program, Mr. Hasan, after the U.S. presidential elections last week. I know it's still early, but how are the results playing out in Malaysia? And if you'd care to tell us in the wider ASEAN region.
First of all, thank you so much for having me here in this program, Sarwar. It's really an honor and appreciative of myself to be here speaking to you on issues that is of interest to all of us here as far as the global political world is concerned. Like you mentioned, it's still early to see what the impact of the US elections are in Malaysia. Of course, there are interests when it comes to what happens in the US, particularly on how it would affect countries like Malaysia in the political and also the economic landscape. Regardless, as far as the Malaysian government is concerned, we will continue to work closely with the US, regardless of which party is in power. You've seen many changes in government, in the US government in many years before this, and Malaysia and US continue to have close working relations. This was also evident in Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim's statement on social media congratulating President-elect Donald Trump on his re-election as the upcoming president of the United States. And that, of course, a nation like Malaysia looks forward to the US's pivotal role in the global landscape today.
You know, Malaysia's Prime Minister, Mr. Anwar Ibrahim, who I had the great pleasure and honor of meeting a number of years ago when he was at a Foreign Policy Association function, has said that your country desires a good, stable relationship with the US while looking at China as an important ally. And I must say, Malaysia has done quite a job in backing up the Prime Minister's strategy. You know, the US chipmaker Micron Technology is investing $1 billion, China's investing money, and so on. So quite a balancing act. Do you think it can continue as a more hawkish US government takes over the administration?
Well, I think, as I mentioned, just now, that Malaysia continues to work with the U.S. Regardless of who is in power, and that we've had a very strong relations with the U.S. As we this is for your information, Sarwar, this is the 10th year that the Malaysia-U.S. Comprehensive Strategic Partnership is since we've established it. So there's a lot of areas of cooperation that we have, and I believe that this would continue in many years to come. Yes, Malaysia has been beneficial to the China Plus One policy that has been introduced among industries. and by the US government itself. In recent years, particularly this year and also in the last year, we've seen many US and European companies expanding to Malaysia, particularly those in the semiconductors, data centers, and artificial intelligence. You've seen the likes of Amazon Web Services, contributing a couple of $1 billion into Malaysia's economy, and also Oracle and a few other companies in the AI sector as well. Of course, the government has realized this, and we've set up many plans to support this this new and upcoming agenda for Malaysia. With one example is the National Semiconductor Strategy, where the Malaysian government introduces a sweeping 3-phase plan backed by a $5.3 billion of fiscal support that targets incentives, which is designed to transform the country into a global powerhouse in the semiconductor industry over the next decade. So we hope to see a good outcome out of this, and definitely, we look forward to a better future as far as the semiconductors, the AIs, the data centers are concerned.
Well, I think you're giving a lot of reasons. I read a headline in the South China Morning Post this morning that said that the South China Morning Post was actually speculating that Malaysia's ties with China would get even better as more firms locate to Malaysia to manufacture products and use it as an export base. So is this part of Malaysia's long-term strategy that Malaysia is putting money into some of the infrastructure and making these firms welcome and offering them benefits, perhaps tax-free zones and so on? What is Malaysia doing to do this? Because it looks like you're really barreling ahead.
Well, of course, we realize that it is important to capitalize on this recent wave that we're experiencing. I think the Malaysia has been a base of many US companies and also Chinese companies. As far as semiconductors is concerned. Other than that, I think within the region, Malaysia has a very strong, a full set of infrastructure that's already established. We have good roads, good supply of electricity, good supply of water, which is all these are critical components to having a good to support a growing industry. Other than that, I think Malaysia has a good educated labor workforce as well. A lot of Malaysians speak English, and of course, the cost of doing business is rather competitive in Malaysia. Plus, the ease of doing business as well is something which is beneficial into Malaysia's favor. I don't see why companies from US or would want to pivot away from Malaysia. It would only make sense to expand whatever it is that has been set up in Malaysia. And given Malaysia's pro-business policies, I think we could definitely work hand in hand with these companies to ensure that all these are being supported. So it's definitely something to look exciting years ahead. In the next decade, and this is also a part of Malaysia's plan, and also to become a fully developed nation, a high-income nation by the year 2027. And I think with the good leadership that we have right now, a stable government, strong institutions, it's something that we definitely look forward to, and I foresee that Malaysia would be able to achieve its role in as far as the economic landscape is concerned. Hence, also putting us in the map in as far as one of the influential countries in the geopolitical landscape as well.
a little bit of a technical questions.
Sure.
We keep reading, Amir, that your state of Penang is becoming kind of a center for 3D chip manufacturing and packaging and so on. Can you tell us why? Why Penang?
Well, I think you have to go back into history. Sawar, when Malaysia started having manufacturing as part of its growth, we had the island of the Penang. We had the island of Penang establishing itself as uh, a destination where foreign chip makers can come and establish themselves. You look at the like of Intel; they came in the 70s, and they were the first ones that that took the initiative to they took the dive, the jump to come into Malaysia and set up their company there. It has been fruitful. In Intel, you see, it's over the past 40, 50 years, they have established themselves from just making a backdoor chip to now, which is they have one of the biggest factories in the world, which is set up in the island of Penang. The state government plays a very important role as well. Supplying all the much needed land and also making sure that the infrastructure is there to support the needs of the companies. Penang is known in Malaysia as the Silicon Valley of the East. So it's a lot of it has a stable infrastructure. It has a stable ecosystem to support the semiconductor industry in Malaysia. So it has also a good workforce in Penang. So definitely something which is exciting, and I do believe that it will continue to grow to become a major player in terms of the semiconductor industry and be a major supply chain in the world today.
Listen, if you don't mind a personal question, you're the consul general from a very important country and perhaps the most important, being a New Yorker, I can say this state in the country. How do you spend your time? You have a growing, wonderful family with 3 children. I mean, do you spend a lot of time doing Wall Street stuff, trying to get better relations, developing business? Can you take a moment and just tell us how you spend your time?
Well, I do admit there's a lot of engagements that we have to do here in New York, given the importance of the city. But I think I have to commend my colleagues at the consulate as well. We have a lot of I have a good team here, so we make sure that we try to cover as much as we can. I can't cover everything, but definitely we do where we have a good teamwork here. And that's something that I embrace. To making sure that this organization functions as a good representation of Malaysia. But of course, my kids always complain, why am I always away? But, I try to make it up to them as and when possible. But so far, I think I'm doing relatively well, given the demands of the work and also, obligations to the family.
Well, you must be. I mean, you've just been elected the president of the Society of Consul Generals, which, as I recall, is over 100 years old, and with all the consul generals in New York. So, congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to take a moment to remind our viewers that Polaris Live is entirely viewer supported. So we'd appreciate your signing up to our mailing list at kashmiri.com and to our YouTube channel, www.polaris-live.com. There's no cost, and it really helps us. Here's a question that now I'm tangenting a bit to foreign policy. In the West, the war between Russia and Ukraine is described as a battle between democracy and authoritarianism. Yet, the largest democracies in the world, in which I include Malaysia, Indonesia, India, do not support the US sanctions against Russia. Why do you think this is?
Well, Sarwar, first of all, thank you for including us including Malaysia as part of the largest democracies. We always see ourselves as a small country, but with an influential role to play. I think to answer your question, Malaysia, we approach the Russian-Ukraine conflict guided by our principles of neutrality, diplomacy, and respect for the international law. Of course, while we condemn aggression and support, Ukraine's sovereignty, Malaysia prefers to take a stance that allows for constructive engagement rather than punitive measures. Sanctions can have unintended consequences on global food and energy supplies, affecting developing nations of most, Malaysia included. As Prime Minister Anwar highlighted, Malaysia does not condone unilateral sanctions unless one that is issued by the UN Security Council. And as a trading nation, Malaysia advocates for free trade, which is an important element in Malaysia's growth. So, our balanced approach allows us to serve as a bridge between East and West, strengthening the cooperation globally. As I mentioned, Malaysia is an independent country, and we believe in doing business, and to do so is to do it in a free trade environment.
Well, that is as succinct an answer as that one would expect. One more question on the security issue, and that is, what is Malaysia's reaction? And you may extend that to Asia if you like. The discussions that are taking place in the West about NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, possibly expanding to include the Asia Pacific region in its remit. What do you folks think about that?
Well, Sarwa, Malaysia is a small nation of 32 million people, and we're a peace-loving nation, and we're a country that values peace in the way we do things. Of course, any military-centric expansion definitely raises questions among like-minded countries. However, I think as Malaysia assumes the ASEAN chair in 2025, it is imperative that Malaysia continues to promote unity, inclusivity, and of course, cooperation within the region. As one might know, ASEAN is the cornerstone of Malaysia's foreign policy, and because of that, we advocate for ASEAN centrality in addressing regional challenges, ensuring that our collective voice is heard in the global forum. Balancing our relationship with China and the US also involves fostering a collaborative environment where ASEAN can leverage partnerships with both powers without being drawn into their bilateral tensions. So we encourage open dialogue, mutual respect, of course, and adherence to international laws and norms, which helps maintain global stability and, of course, economic integration. ASEAN centrality is something that we look forward to, and it's something that we definitely champion. And of course, if you've seen ASEAN in the previous years, in its founding years, one of the policies that was introduced was the ZOPFAN. The founding fathers introduced what we call ZOPFAN, which is short form for the Zone of Peace, Freedom, and Neutrality. As you know, historically, Southeast Asia has been a battleground for for conflicts among powers
Indeed.
in those years. So I think, given the economic growth of Southeast Asia now, and that stability within ASEAN itself, many of the like-minded countries or member states within ASEAN look into having peace as a way for us to move forward from the past that we've had in the decades before this. So ASEAN plays a pivotal role in ensuring that peace is something that is embraced, and so we hope that with Malaysia being chair of ASEAN next year, this will continue, and of course, we look forward to further growth in championing the ASEAN cause.
Well, Malaysia has been a strong and founding member of ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. And I remember when we talked to our mutual friend, Kishore Mahbubani, some time back, he made it a point to underline the value and the role that Malaysia has played. So I'm glad that you brought that up. What I'd like to do now, as you know, Polaris Live is driven by the belief that better relations between China and the United States are good, not only for them, but for the entire world and its economy and its security. So I'm going to do a little bit of blue clouding with you, Consul General. If you had a chance to get a few minutes privately with President Xi Jinping and the incoming President Donald Trump, what might you give them as some actionable items in private to better the relationship?
If I do get a private moment, which it's I don't think I'll ever get the opportunity to do so, but regardless, in an ideal world, I think the main thing that I would say is for them to talk. We acknowledge that the U.S.-China relations continue to be tense, and given the rhetorics mentioned by U.S. President-elect in his presidential campaign, of course, this would be something that raises alarm bells, especially as far as the U.S.-China relations is concerned. But I think continuous engagement is something that we would like for them to have. They should also maintain a strategic channel of communication, so that communication between the two countries will continue to flow. I think the worst part is not to talk and having an assumption of what the other party is doing, because that would create animosity among the people and the officials. The recent talks held between both countries at the APEC in last year between President Biden and President Xi Jinping was a step in the right direction, we believe, and I hope somehow this would continue with under the leadership of President-elect Trump. Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim also, in balancing these two countries, these two major powers, mentioned that in his visit to China in 2023, that he mentioned, given the priority of the trade, we come to China first. But as a trading nation, Malaysia must maintain excellent relationship between both the countries, the US and both China. So conversation is something that they must have. This line of communication must be open, and continue to engage. That's the only way that I see it.
Well, you've made some really interesting points there. I mean, how countries in Asia are trying to balance their relationship with America and China, between America and China. And they've done it so well. Maybe you have courses in the university that we can send both of these people to do that. But let me press you a bit more on that. Is there an area that you think, I mean, the relations have become so involved with politics that it's difficult to talk about this, but is there an area you think where both can come together without the tenseness that goes in other interactions between the two? I mean, pandemic, maybe setting up an organization to handle pandemics, maybe setting up an organization to get college people involved. And is there something that comes to mind that might not be as politically heavy, but that they can do without worrying about the tenseness?
Well, Sarwar, I think at the end of the day, people-to-people relation is what is important, and also an important element in diplomacy.
Right.
I mean, one area probably that both countries can look at, which I'm sure they are looking at, is the student exchange program. There's a lot of students that comes here to the United States. There are also students that goes to China to learn about the culture, and both these countries have good universities. You see in the top 100 universities in the world, you see, of course, not even top 100, top 20, I think. You see Chinese universities and, of course, American universities. And I do believe that student exchange would be something which both countries can look into. I was at a recent event hosted by the Consul General of China, and how they've had American students that goes to China to learn about the Chinese culture, Chinese values, and also Chinese, studying Chinese and so on and so forth. And it is, once you've been to those countries, it gives you an awareness, an exposure to how these people are, how the other side is, and you realize that there's not much difference between the both of you. At the end of the day, we're all human beings, and so that's one area that they can look into to enhance the student exchange population further, both in the US and also in China.
Of course, you've mentioned that ASEAN is very central to Malaysian foreign policy. China is
Absolutely.
very close to Malaysia geographically. Would you encourage America to become more actively involved with ASEAN? I know we attend the meetings. I know America has representatives that are there, but would you like to see more of an interaction between ASEAN and the US?
Well, I mean, the US has been an important dialogue partner to ASEAN. And of course, like you mentioned, US leaders have been participating in ASEAN meetings, throughout the years. And cooperation has with the US and ASEAN has been at a high level. But of course, moving forward into the future, I think having further cooperation, elevating the cooperation is definitely something that all countries within ASEAN would look forward to. Anything that would improve the bilateral relations of all the ASEAN countries would definitely be something that all countries, all ASEAN member states would look forward to, as I mentioned. So definitely, I would recommend that further cooperation is being extended, and also ASEAN could be a point where both countries could come and meet and talk, as a platform for all the powers to come and speak to one another. Perhaps ASEAN could be a platform where peace is being advocated instead of the other. So definitely look forward to something which is positive. And I think with Malaysia as chair of ASEAN in 2025, given the role it has the influential role it has within ASEAN, and also the powers, the bigger powers. This could be something which can be used to bring some sort of stability, to the global scenario.
Well, Mr. Amir Farid Abu Hasan, Consul General of Malaysia in New York, we have, alas, run out of time. I want to thank you once again profusely for the time you gave us on this program and for your timely and instructive conversation. I hope that you will come back and see us again, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Thank you. And also now, thank you to our viewers from around the world. Please join us again on polarislive.com as we continue to explore the impact of the US presidential elections on the most consequential relationship in the world, that between the United States and China, and its impact on the world. Until then, goodbye.